Hello, Julian.
Hello, Mike. Tonight, we're going to talk about why vets are so expensive.
And why cropping dogs' ears is simply wrong. And we're going to discuss all of this with our special guest, Kat the vet.
Hi, I'm Mike Brampton.
And my name is Julian Ho.
Welcome to Veterinary Ramblings.
Here's Kat. Good afternoon.
Hello, Kat.
Hello.
Hello.
So how was the pandemic for you? That's a question we ask these days, isn't it? But how was the war for you? Did you have a good war? How was the pandemic?
So the pandemic for me, well, I think what you have to realise is that I've got two small children of school age.
Yeah.
And it has cemented in my mind why I would never be a teacher, ever. And why I chose to go down the route of working with animals rather than children. Although I think they behave really badly for their parents. But homeschooling was just awful. I never want to do it again. I threw all my toys out of the pram when Boris announced he was closing the schools again in January. And it was very sad because it was the beginning of January. So I had cleared the house out of anything alcoholic apart from some crusty old gin. And there were no chocolate or snacks at all. So I was stress eating breadsticks and drinking elderly gin on the night that he was busy making that announcement. Ew. So I mean, from like a working point of view, you know, once we'd sorted ourselves out, it's been perfectly fine, and we're making it work. And you know, we're still not having clients in the building in my practice, but we're in a rhythm now and it's fine. I can't wait for it to be over. You know, it's in some ways it's nice not to have the clients there, isn't it? Your conversations can carry on. You know, you just talk to the bonding that's happened between the staff is phenomenal. We can pretty much read each other's minds now because there's nothing to interrupt our, you know, we're just literally spending all our time with each other. There's no other humans around, but it just makes client communication so difficult. It just takes such a lot of more time. I can't wait to get them back in the building, and hopefully in our practice we'll be looking to do that the next sort of lockdown lift. And so it's been it's been the same for everyone, hasn't it? It's been a real learning curve. There's been positives and negatives, but the end is in sight, and that's the main thing. And the children are in school.
And the children are in school, yes. Yes, I have two as well, two daughters, 13 and 9. I feel your pain, Kat. I really do. But at the practice, we've had people coming in now for 2 weeks and loving it. The only problem is that we've all become gutter mouths during lockdown. And so, whereas before you'd have a nice sort of temperate conversation with clients, it's, I'll just get a blood sample. Oi, bitch, get the syringes. I'm terribly sorry. That was my, no, I'm sorry. No, do carry on. What do you want, wanker? No, it's all right. It's coming. So clients back in again. Oh, that's right, sorry. So we've had to learn to turn down a bit.
Just chill it out a bit. Yeah, I can imagine. You can be a bit more frank when the clients aren't in the room. But then trying to like talk to them, you know, we're going out at the moment with face masks on in the car park, and it's so ridiculous. I appreciate that mask wearing is a good thing, but while you're trying to speak to a client in a car park next to where we are, quite a main road, and you're busy yelling through a mask.
Yes.
Trying to keep your distance, trying to communicate things with just your eyes, empathize with my eyes. But then you think, well, I'd love to take this mask off, but you know, I'm the professional in this situation. We must play.
You're right. We can't.
But anyway, the end is in sight. I mean, I'm too young and healthy to have had my vaccine yet, but I apparently they're rolling around. The age group is coming for my area, so apparently I am on a list somewhere.
Mike and I managed to get it done some 20 years early. We're very lucky.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, really, because if you're down in our neck of the woods, you might end up on the end of one of our needles.
Yeah.
Oh, you're doing it.
We both do. Mike's done a lot more sessions. I'm still a neophyte, but I've learned it's the pointy end that goes in, and that's really the bit that counts.
Yes, yeah. And you don't have to clip them up or wipe them with spirit or get a second pair of hands to pin them down or whistle quickly because they turn around and bite you. Didn't you find this at the beginning of the pandemic? Lots of vet professionals rushed to volunteer. We know about healthcare. They'll want us. Won't it be fabulous? We'll all do something, blitz spirit and all of that. And then there was this real sort of muted outrage that they didn't want us. No vet professionals, I think, got asked to, volunteer on a ward or do something. And there was a little bit of, I don't know, there's a word, isn't there, for sort of a collective, mild, hurt
a
feeling.
Generalised chagrin, I believe, is the expression you're looking for.
Something like that. That's a good word. Because of course we're not DRB checked. We know about medicine, but we don't know about it in people. We wouldn't know the first thing about taking blood or applying a dressing or, spoon feeding a grandma. We could probably muddle through.
Or taking account of their mental health.
Well, people had to do all kinds of crazy training, did they? And they were like, well, you've not done your spotting a terrorist training. You're not allowed anywhere near people.
We've done that.
I have.
Yeah. I haven't seen any. Have you seen any potential ones and reported them for event? Michael?
I don't know, because I did have an 82-year-old come in the other day, and she was hiding behind a Portsmouth Football Club mask.
Oh, yeah.
And I was
Did you say to her, have you been spending a bit of time by yourself and away from your friends of late? Bit worried about that.
I did wonder. No, she was a lovely old dear. The admin I was working with said, should we talk about football? And I said, look at the mask. She doesn't know anything about football.
I didn't think we had time to chat. I thought it was in, sit, stab, out.
Pretty much.
Yeah, there's a bit of a chat that can be had.
There's a bit of it's called bedside manner, Cat. It's called bedside.
Oh, right, is it? Yeah.
And none of them have complained about the bill, which is great. None of them walked out and said, how much? Cool, you NHS were a rip-off. I don't know whether that ever occurs to you as a vet, or that happens. God, they can charge me.
I spoke to a Sunday Times journalist yesterday about that very subject. So we shall see what piece appears. I think it's coming out. Well, by the time this airs, it'll be very much yesterday's chip paper. But
well, yes, I think it's a subject that goes on and on. We were reading your blog earlier on that very subject. Aren't vets expensive? Short answer: are vets expensive? Yes or no?
Vets are costly, but vets are not expensive.
Mm-hmm. Very good way of putting it.
So yes, we're not cheap, but we represent great value for money for the service that you get. That's often what I will say. Yes, we do cost quite significant amounts of money, and it's okay to think that, and it's okay to sometimes bulk at the cost, and it's okay to sometimes not be able to afford it, but it doesn't mean that we're ripping you off or we're profiteering. There's two very different concepts happening at the same, one is true and one isn't true. We represent great value for money, and you could say we are shielded from healthcare costs because of the NHS. We don't really know what things cost, but then you get on any forum with American vets in a country where they pay for their healthcare, or they're all handed a bill, and they still struggle with it. Just spending any money at all makes some people complain. So we just have to sort of try to I know it sounds terribly motivational speaker, but we do have to communicate the value of what we do, because it's very valuable. That's what I think.
No, I think you're right. I think we had it. I say we. Those of the slightly older generation had it easier when we first qualified, because there weren't that many options for owners. We were just starting when I qualified to get into.
Take a bit of Vitamox LA and some vitamin B, the pink stuff, ram it in the back of the neck, and off they go.
Absolutely, clam and DQ every Friday afternoon, and they would be fine. But then, rightly, we've learned that there are more things we can do. The options for referral, the options for advanced imaging and advanced surgery are very much there. And of course, they do come at a huge order of magnitude increase in costs. We're often told, aren't we, be proud of what you charge. I don't know if that's possible to be proud of what you charge. I think you've always got to be aware that the people don't have limitless amounts of money, and we shouldn't rely on insurance companies topping that money up. So I do think we need to be aware of the money we charge. But you're right, there is there should be an acceptance that that is value for money.
Yeah.
If I do an MRI scan on a dog for £1,000, well, you can bet that having it done in a hospital is going to be a little more than that once you've got the consultants' fees added into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And insurance is a self-fulfilling prophecy. A lot of these articles, when they come out saying, vets bills are skyrocketing, rising above inflation, hugely increased in the last 5 to 10 years, or whatever they say, when you look at it, a lot of that is based on insurance companies. Like, it's basically an advertorial for, look how expensive vets are, you should take out our insurance policies.
Yeah.
But insurance is a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you take out insurance and have £4,000 to spend, or £6,000, or whatever it is on an illness, and there is the option to spend that, obviously you're not going to spend it on everything, but if there is an option, if you have the freedom to spend the insurance company's money and a situation where that's a suitable thing, well, I mean, obviously you're going to do it, aren't you? So, Then it goes up, and I think there is this, concept, and there is a bit of disquiet even within the profession about, when do you stop? How far do you go? What do you put animals through? And how do you make sure that the ethics of the more advanced treatments are okay in comparison to quality of life and all of that jazz? But I still think in the vast majority of cases, our referral colleagues, that's their bread and butter, isn't it? The reason this is a sensitive subject for vets is because we're so sensitive about the fact that people will accuse us of, not caring about the animals and only caring about the money. And it's such an anathema. It's so wrong. It's completely polar opposite to actually what motivates us, that we do find that very upsetting. And unfortunately, we are not bombarded, but if you spend any time online, if you're into animals and you hang out in any forum, any group, any page that's full of pet owning public, vet bashing will and does occur. And it's very, very hard to rise above it. And it's also very hard to realize that, as my grandmother used to tell me, the emptiest ships make the most noise. There is a small vocal minority that will rant and rave on the internet, and they can have you can lose sight of the fact that they're actually, they are a minority, and actually they don't matter. If you've got clients that are really that awful, just get rid of them. One thing that's happened a lot during the pandemic is I think a lot of practices have offloaded awful clients. I think a lot of practices have just gone, we do not have the time, the energy, the will to deal with this. Here's your VDS letter. Bye-bye. And
you're absolutely right.
Really use that as an opportunity to
we've done that in the last year more than we've done for the rest of my career, and it's been great. It's been quite cathartic. You're a TV vet yourself, aren't you, Kat? Or you were? You have been?
Yes.
You may still be.
Yes, I am. Yeah. I've been involved in 2 television programs in my career. The first was a solid decade ago now, which was a television show called Animal Madhouse, which was very short-lived on Channel 4. And it was called as the Embarrassing Bodies for Pets. So Embarrassing Bodies was a program on Channel 4 where they would get people with very personal, pretty disgusting, rather upsetting health issues, willing to showcase them on national television. And it was a wildly popular show. And so they decided to do the same for animals. So I was part of one of a team of 4 vets who they sort of picked for the show. And they didn't come to me. I wasn't headhunted. I applied for it. I'm a narcissist at heart, along with a lot of other things. And so we did this show, and we did all sorts of things. We did animals with like disgusting cysts and horrible lumps and all kinds of fairly grim things. And it lasted 1 season. Nobody watched it. Nobody wants to see animals with disgusting problems. They'll watch humans spread their legs on national television for hours on end, but not animals. So that one was very short-lived. And then I sunk back into obscurity. And then I sort of started all the social media stuff, and all of that kind of thing grew, writing a blog and running Facebook pages and whatnot. And then a few years ago, Children's BBC put out a call and said, we're casting for a new show of, for kids TV, for vets and stuff. And so again, I was like, right, well, yeah, I'll do that. So I now am a team of originally 4, but now 5 vets on that show. The cameras basically come in and it's followers around ordinary first opinion vet work, from the animal in the waiting room to the consulting room to out the back to surgery to post-op and that. And it's all based around, well, it's for children. So actually we've dealt with some quite significant themes: responsible pet ownership, euthanasia. They laughed at me because I was like, we have to include death. You must get a death in. And they were like, oh, we're really, we don't know. And I was like, we need a child crying on the television. And they were like, we can't do that, Kat, because, if in 5 years' time that child grows up, like you say, and then objects to the fact that they're a weeping 9-year-old because their guinea pig died, they were like, we can't have that. But I was like, it's such a big part of pet ownership. We have to include those decisions.
It is. And, I think pretty much every vet we've had on, we've discussed any aspect of the veterinary profession, it's got onto euthanasia. It's a huge part of our lives, our working lives, and our personal lives as well. I mean, how many of us have been asked to put a friend's dog to sleep at the weekend or in the evening and things? I think all of us, haven't we, at some stage?
Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that. Euthanasia is not a big part of my personal life. I don't, dash around the countryside finding animals to kill. But yes, I did exactly that. I put to sleep a friend's dog quite recently in their kitchen in my downtime. So yeah, it's a gift and it's a good thing, and of course it's a big part of our lives. So I was very keen for them to include that. So that's now run for 4 years, and that's been really fun. And that show, we have had to do things like voiceover work, and we do to camera pieces, and a bit of like acting and script reading. And so it's been really nice as a way to sort of get your eye on a different world. They currently hasn't been recommissioned at the moment. They made a pitch and the BBC didn't decide to take it on again, but things have been really different in the world at the minute. So they're going to repitch in September, and we shall see. But this is the thing with TV, is you have zero control. It's not, if they pick you, that's wonderful and you can do it and it's great, and it's quite intimidating with cameras in following you around. And you do sometimes have to, on 1 or 2 occasions I have said, look, can you just stop filming just for a second while I just deal with whatever I'm doing, because you're stressing me out now. And they always do. But they edit you well. They were like, as soon as we pick this camera up, you sort of change in your personality, and we need you, and you're all doing it. It's ridiculous. Carry on being yourselves. And you're like, well, yes, but that's fine. But you're filming me in a professional environment. I can't jape about, for want of a better phrase. And the first series, certainly, where we're all all of us involved were quite reserved. But then you see it, and because you have no control over editing, they don't give you any. They don't say, right, well, here's the final product. Are you okay with this? Do you want to take any stuff out? You don't get any editorial control. You don't get any of that. But what you have to remember is it's not in their interests to make you look bad. The whole point of the show is to make you look good and to show the show in a positive light. Yeah. So you do have to sort of, you do relinquish a huge amount of control, and you can only do what you do. But I did take a leaf out of, you remember when Mel and Sue used to present the Great British Bake Off? I read an interview once that said whenever something was going wrong and a baker was getting themselves in a real tizzy and they were just really getting upset, one of the two of them would just go and stand next to them and swear like troopers, because they can't use the footage then.
I like that.
So
never worked with Brian Blessed for the same reasons. But you have worked with Mr. Tumble.
Sorry, Telly. Oh yes, I met Mr. Tumble. So I've done some quite cool things. We did. I was involved in like that. They do silly things for comic relief and stuff like that. And they asked me to go and take part in a sketch where different characters from CBBC were appearing in a sketch together. And one of the people that I met was Mr. Tumble, who, if you are if you have children, small children, he's inevitably going to be part of your life. If you don't know who he is, treasure your ignorance. And if you do know who he is, then you're either in that part of life or you're through it. So yes,
I've always hoped that they'd phone me up one day and say he can't make it. Could you come in at the last minute? But, I've got my wigs, I've got my clown makeup, I've got everything like that, but they haven't asked me yet.
You know what? He is he was a lovely man, like quite a friendly person, just like you'd imagine him to be, actually, sort of just big and jolly and sort of squidgy and round. But it was genuinely interesting watching him work, because he had to sort of perform this like clowning piece where he sort of put his foot in a bucket and fell over and then honked somebody's nose, and that classic clowning. And when you see them do that up close, you realize what a skill that is. Like, he did the same clowning routine 3 or 4 times as they shot from different angles and did different takes. And he was really funny and did it brilliantly every time. And apparently he's like a classically trained clowning actor. There's some sort of area of acting where you can be classically trained as that. And he's from that sort of Laurel and Hardy training school of clowning. But we all have our skill set. That's not mine.
That's Julian's skill set too, Kat.
Yeah,
there we go.
It actually is. I did drama classes, acting to a professional standard many years ago, and part of the training I had was pratfalls, so how to fall correctly, and it stood me in good stead. I've managed to fall quite convincingly in various department stores in London, just to lighten the mood of shoppers I was with at the time. I fell, is it Harvey Nichols? I fell down 3 flights of stairs, managing to tangle myself up in one of those little plastic chains that said slippery floor. So I pretended to slip at the top, twisted my arm around the chain, tumbled down the staircase, stood up and went, whew, great. Oh, I'm okay. Stepped off, pretended, got my leg caught around the chain and fell down another flight, stood up, shook the chains off and said, well, thank goodness that's over, and then missed the next step as I went down the last flight of stairs and fell down that one. At which point 6 shop assistants came up to me and said, are you all right? And I said, yeah, absolutely fine. Am I at the bus stop already? And they said, oh my God, let's call the ambulance. I said, no, it's fine. Which one of you is my mother? And at which point my wife slapped me around the head and we walked off.
Yeah, you've been banned from a number of stores.
Yeah, it could be quite profitable, that. Yeah. Actually,
I've never done it for financial gain, although it has crossed my mind.
You also got banned from Marks and Spencers as well, haven't you? Yeah. Other supermarkets and stores are actually available. So,
but not to me.
So what got you into this then, Kat? I mean, what was it, and when did you know that you were going to become a veterinary surgeon?
Oh, to become a vet? Oh, I was one of those very annoying children who knew what I wanted to be from about the age of 10. So people say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would say, a vet. I want to be a vet. But I come from a long line of doctors. A huge amount of my family are human medics, and my mum's a medic. And I mean, I don't know if this is parenting excellence or terrible, but we would say as children, Mummy, what should we be when we grow up? And she would say, you can be a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, or a vet. Full stop. There was the 4 choices that we had, because she's really wedded to the idea of being a professional and having a vocational career, and it worked for him. Her, her parents and my grandparents were both doctors. She's a doctor. She's got 3 siblings, 2 of which are also GPs like her. The youngest one is a physiotherapist. And of my 9 cousins on my mother's side, 6 are doctors now. So we have this huge medical family. So it was that, or be a doctor, effectively. And I decided pretty early on I liked animals better than people. In fact, I was asked that question live on a children's Saturday morning TV show. And I didn't really think terribly hard. And the kid said, Kat, why did you want to be a vet when you were little? And I went, well, because I liked animals better than people. And it was only afterwards I thought, that's maybe not the child-friendly answer they were looking for. So yeah, I did. I always loved animals. And so it was a very, I think a lot of us decide, don't we, very young, that that's what we want to do.
Yeah,
and
I decided when I was 5.
We never change our mind, and we get to, we go through all our schooling, and because quite from early on, because the application process and is so long, and you have to do so much work experience, and have you worked with sheep, and have you worked with cats, and have you worked, you just put yourself on a trajectory, and you get there, and if I had a lot of support, and I came from a medical background, so when I said I want to be a vet, it was completely obtainable and totally normal, to want to do a vocational career. I came from somewhere where that was not an out there suggestion, and I was very supported to do it. So I do feel like I was really lucky. My husband is also a vet, Kel Surprise, and he had a very different sort of life. His dad's university educated, but there's nobody medical even vaguely in his family. He went to a completely ordinary comprehensive, which I did actually, and then a completely ordinary comprehensive for his A-levels. I switched to the private system for A-levels, which is where they say to you, what do you want to do? And you say, I'd like to be a vet. And they say, no problem, we'll make you get to vet school. And you get so much support in that system. He went off to comprehensive A-level and did it pretty much all by himself. Effectively, he had one teacher that believed in him and supported him, but otherwise he had none of this spoon feeding me interview questions and what do you want to get for your A-levels? Okay, great, we'll get you that for your A-levels. So I do feel very, very fortunate that I made it, and I never would have not made it. Do you know what I mean? I never would have not made it, because in a family like mine, if you express a wish to do that, you try standing in front of a university educated middle class mother where her middle class daughter wants to get into vet school. You try and stand in her way. You'll not stop her. You wouldn't have stopped my mother.
Well, I think you're downplaying your determinism and intelligence
yes, I worked hard. I did everything I had to. I went to I spent countless hours in catteries scooping out cat poo, and sitting on farms looking at cows, and all of that, and propping up walls in the local vet practice. You do have to commit yourself. You can't go into it half-arsed. And it was the right decision for me right from it's always been what I wanted to do, and I'm very happy doing it. I do wonder sometimes if some of the disillusionment in the profession comes from the fact that a lot of us did decide on our career path at 10 and are so committed to it, and you have to be so focused right from the very beginning that we never change our minds, not because we don't think about changing our minds, and then when you actually get and realize the reality of it, it's maybe not it actually was the wrong idea, but because you have to be so laser focused, and there is no real room for doubt, because if you doubt it, you won't get in, whether that plays a role in some of the disillusionment that happens at the other end of the journey. I
think you're right. You find that some people will go through vet school, take a first job and leave almost immediately, and the shock of the realization of what the profession is and what they'd hoped it would be is very different. Would you, if you were able to go back and talk to your 18-year-old self, would you tell them to take the same route, make the same choice? So what would you say?
Yes, I would. So I've been asked this question before, and yes, I absolutely would, because I love my job and my career. It's not, there are bad days and there are stressful things, and I question, sometimes you have a day where you're just like, that is it, I'm not doing this anymore, this is the worst job in the world, I absolutely hate it, I'm so rubbish at it, this is just too much, I'm leaving. But I literally have no idea what else I would do, so that's not going to happen. But also, I know that if I went back to my 18-year-old self and tried to change my mind, nobody would have changed my mind. So it wouldn't matter either way, really. And there are some people who'd give a different answer to that. But I sort of feel like I'm quite fortunate in the fact that this was always my path, and this was the right path, and I did make the right choice when I was 10. But I feel like that's a chance thing, really, rather than some sort of revelation. I think I just happened upon the right decision.
That's interesting. Good answer. Yeah.
That's really good. But Kat, you don't just limit it to working as a vet, do you? You spend an awful lot of time working on social media, on your blog, on social platforms, and you're trying to communicate to the general public as well as just keeping everything within the veterinary profession, aren't you? What is it?
Yes.
So what got you into that then?
So yes, the foray into social media and writing and that kind of thing is my own personal diversification within my career. And I think that is probably one of the reasons why, in addition to enjoying my job and in addition to not wanting to not be a vet anymore, like an unfortunate number of us do, I think that has given me something else to think about within the frame of the profession. So basically what happened was I graduated, I went off to work in a small animal veterinary hospital in Wolverhampton for its central position in the country, not its cultural reputation. And
Wolverhampton was lovely. I don't know what you're talking about.
What's the problem with Wolverhampton?
Very nice.
Yeah.
So I did work in the posh bit, but I rarely forayed at the time into Wolverhampton city centre. And when I did, I always came home and thought, I need to take a shower. It was perfectly. It was perfect. It was perfectly fine, but it's no good. So I did that, and so you know, the first part of your career, you are running as fast as you can to stay still. Your entire life is completely taken over by veterinary. You're exhausted all the time. It's very hard. And then I sort of came out of that, and I've always enjoyed talking to clients and communicating with them, and you know, trying to get them on board with, you know, why we're doing treatments, why we're doing what we're doing, what they need to do at home, helping them to understand the whatever condition it is that their pet has, in order to then be more successful to treat it. Unfortunately, back in the dark ages when I graduated, so at this time, so it's about 2007, there was very little resources available to us, particularly on the internet. And what was on the internet were big websites in primary colours with flashing images saying Metacam kills. And I was like, right. No. So I just thought I need somewhere to send my clients, and there's nowhere to send them.
Sorry, if I could just say, other non-steroidals kill as well. Obviously, it wasn't just
all of them deadly across the board.
and they don't quickly. Yeah. Sorry, do carry on.
So I decided to write my own website of veterinary advice, because I was like, I have nowhere to send my clients. I'm going to just do this. I'm going to do this, which is a running theme, you know, through why I've ended up where I've ended up, because I'm like, well, no one else is saying this. Someone should say this. I'll do it. Very much a theme, you know, it's a fundamental part of my psyche, essentially. So I wrote this website, Veterinary Advice, which still exists. It's called catthevet.com. If you go and read some of that, please bear in mind that it was all written well over a decade ago, and I haven't had time to go and update any of it. But no, advice about lots of things doesn't change. So I wrote that, and then that sort of sat there for a bit, and I didn't really do anything with it. And then, you know, these things just develop, don't they? So I started to write a blog, again, just as a way of expressing frustration and helping to educate and, you know, tackling issues. And then I started, you know, then it was the advent of social media and Facebook and all of that. So I started a Facebook page. You mentioned a blog of mine about expense. So I wrote this blog called Why Your Vet Won't Give You Credit, which was all about the costs in the background of veterinary medicine and why we cost what we do, and why we won't, you know, why you'll rarely get a discount or be allowed to pay off in installments, that kind of thing. And that went crazy. That just went absolutely madly viral all across the world as soon as I'd launched it. And that kind of took my, you know, what was at that stage a very, very small Facebook page and social media presence, and really just bumped it right up. And at that point, people started to sort of, oh, I've heard of you. Oh, I know who you are. And then I've just carried on doing that. And now it is a very significant part of my career and part of my life. You know, if you live a life online like that, if you run any sort of page, you know, regardless of the subject, if you're doing it like that, it's hugely time consuming. it's always got to be a passion project, because there's you're always social media is the beast that needs to be fed. And when anyone says to me, well, I'd love to do what you do, I'd have you got any tips? I'm like, yeah, you do it. Especially from the veterinary point of view, we need more veterinary voices. We need more sensible, normal, science-based, evidence-based advice out there, because currently homeopathy, raw feeding, alternative treatments, anti-vaxxers, all wormers are chemicals, all flea stuff are chemicals, have stolen the march on us hugely in the online space. We need more voices.
Yeah. Why is it, do you think, that people are more willing to believe non-evidence-based things? Because even if you provide an evidence base, is it that they've had their minds already turned? Or I think there's an essential mistrust, isn't there, of the government, the scientists, people in charge, whatever. That there's this feeling that getting back to nature and rubbing yourself with a crystal or a magnet will get you better, because actually that's something that people have been doing for thousands of years and has been controlled by the government, even though it doesn't work.
The nature fallacy, because it's natural, it must be safe. Right. Well, you go and snack on some deadly nightshade and come back and talk to me about it.
Tell that to Nicholas Evans. Absolutely, yeah.
I think on the whole, I think the problem is the online space is a very, very different place to the real world. And it's something that I have to constantly remind myself of, because I spend such a lot of time in that online space. And in the online world, yes. And again, it comes back to my granny and the emptiest ships making the most noise. Or, if you want to be more scientific about it, the Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't know if you've heard of that. Have you not?
I haven't. Mike's nodding. I haven't.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard about it.
It's a wonderful one. You must Google it. It's this wonderful bell-shaped curve. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is at the beginning of when you learn about. So it's that thing of that. The more you know, the more you realise that you don't know, and the less you know, the more you think you do know. So a very superficial knowledge of a certain subject, for example, immunology and vaccination, gives you the impression that you know what you're talking about. But when you delve into it deeper, you realize that you don't know what you realize how much knowledge there is to learn. Mm-hmm. And the ironic thing is the most educated people are actually the least, not confident in their abilities, but they're the most likely to, if you say, well, it doesn't work,
to go cautious in what they say.
So the Dunning-Kruger effect is alive and well all over the internet. Mm-hmm. And also those people who think they know what they're talking about, write very black and white information out there. Homeopathy, it works, and this is why. You shouldn't, rely on worm egg counts. It works, and this is why. Raw food is amazing and has absolutely no downsides whatsoever, and this is why. So if you're an ordinary pet owner who's not got, is an intelligent, normal person but has no depth of scientific knowledge about a subject, and you read a blog from somebody who thinks they know what they're talking about, it is incredibly convincing. That's why. Whereas if you read a blog from someone who genuinely knows what they're talking about, there's often a balanced nuance to what they're writing. They're often going to say, and this, I've got this piece of knowledge from this scientific survey. They put the references in. And I think some people think, well, you're telling me you know it because somebody else said to you. Well, that must mean you don't know what you're talking about. So that's why.
Yeah.
I'm laughing, Kat, because I got into a social media brawl, and I hit them with about 50 papers, and they reverted to the black and white, the black and white name calling. They just were not interested in looking at 50 papers worth of evidence to show that they were wrong. I loved it.
Yeah. When our professional integrity is impinged upon, we can all be name callers, can't we?
Yeah.
But actually, I think you're right. The more you know about a subject, the more receptive you are to different points of view, because you can see that actually there may be an aspect of it that you hadn't considered, that at the very least is interesting to look at.
Absolutely. And you go away and you think, okay, you question it, like, okay, maybe maybe there is a small but significant chance that I am wrong on this, or maybe there is some extra knowledge that I am not aware of because I am used to assimilating new knowledge all the time. So off you trot to go and research it. And 99.9% of the time, it turns out that you were right all along, but you checked. But the reason, these alternative viewpoints, which are very much in the minority, do not change their viewpoint is because they are not interested in researching into their viewpoint. We all love an underdog. And I think the other thing is, some of the reason why some people get into it is because there is that natural need, that natural instinct to support the underdog. Again, what drives me to do what I do, there's two main drivers. The first is this profession. This profession is amazing. The people in it are fabulous. We are incredibly skilled, full of integrity, absolutely passionate, and care desperately about our patients. And we do not deserve some of the bad press we get. So one of the huge drivers behind everything that I do is just, combating that and trying to, just trying to communicate how great we are. The other side of it is about making sure that there is good levels of information out there for the ordinary pet owner. The pile-ons that happen are are really quite extreme and make it very hard to, they want to silence. That's what they're after. They want to silence, people like me. But it's so important that we say it.
It is. Because these people have
all the ones who've made decisions. It's for the ones who are just trying to desperately do the right thing and are desperate for the profession to stand up and say that, guys, this is what we think you should do, but we don't, because we're quite we're sort of afraid of offending people, and then the only person who loses out then is the pet.
And I think, are we afraid of offending them, or are we afraid of getting into an argument with someone who's ranting on about something that has no scientific basis? There's a bit of each, really, isn't there?
Absolutely. I have had a conversation on my TikTok. Yes, I'm on TikTok. I'm very down with the kids today about raw feeding, because I put up a post about, guys, dogs aren't wolves, and here's why. And somebody made a comment and said, oh, I feed my dog kibble, but I'm constantly being shamed for not feeding raw. And I said, that in the microcosm is why I do what I do, because I replied and said, feed kibble, it is fabulous, and this is why. So yes, and that's the other thing that annoys me is if I post something particularly about raw food, also about homeopathy, I don't do it very often. And one of the reasons I don't do it very often, and it annoys me because this is a reason, is because of the backlash that happens. And if I put anything up, there are tens of comments saying, you don't know what you're talking about, vets are all in the pocket of big kibble, you're killing animals. Tens and tens and tens and tens of them. And it is stressful, and it is unpleasant, and it is hard to deal with and to take. And I'm not the only one who suffers with this. I've seen other vets be incite pylons. No, they don't incite them, suffer from pylons, because they've said something evidence-based and correct. Nutrition is not opinion, it is a science. But I've seen it happen. And you know what they're trying to do is they're trying to bully you into silence, because they do not want you to say that. And it annoys me, because sometimes it works, and sometimes I just think, I just haven't got time. I just don't want to deal with that right now. But because I'm quite bloody minded and I hate bullies above all things, I still do it. And I'm very supportive of anyone else who wants to do it. Although, people often say to me, you're so amazing online. When people are so rude to you, you will reply with like lovely, long, evidence-based messages about, sort of, restating your viewpoints. And I'm like, yeah, I do because I just can't let it lie. I can't let it lie. And so I bring these things on myself. But equally, it's not actually fun to do that. But it's just so important that somebody does it.
So so you poke the bear, and sometimes you get a big reaction. So have you got any coping strategies to cope with on that?
Yeah, you sound like my husband. Oh, have you done it again? Have you? As I'm like sort of going, oh God, this has happened, and he's like, Well, it's entirely your own fault. I don't know why you're complaining to me about it, so I don't tell him about it anymore because I don't get any sympathy. Coping strategies not hugely, other than the fact that I know it's going to happen, so I'm ready for it. But it still makes it doesn't ever stop it being quite, very unpleasant. But you know what makes the biggest difference of all? And shout out to my fellow professionals and supporters, it's just when people comment something supportive. And sometimes when I've put something up and not paid attention to it for a while, I will come back and my point of view is being defended for me in comments and in forums. And that's wonderful. And it makes a massive difference because it's just, you just think, oh, thank goodness these people are so convinced that I am the devil incarnate. And it's just really nice to have this support.
Mm-hmm.
That has been particularly wonderful recently because I've been involved in this campaign for anti-cropping at dogs' ears. And although I say that the raw feeders are one of the worst, which they are, the people who are pro-cropping are also, some of them, a small minority, deeply, deeply unpleasant. And I've had some serious reportable abuse through that. Yeah, and just the one death threat and rape threat, but that came, but that unfortunately is the standard of person who thinks that chopping dogs' ears off is a good idea.
I think you're right. There's a general, again, we're generalising. I say we're generalising. Actually, we're couching that, aren't we? Are we generalising, or does anyone who crop their dog's ears do it because they want their dog to look more aggressive because they are small-minded, aggressive individuals themselves? I put it out there. Can there be any logical, plausible, nice reason for wanting your dog's ears to be cropped? I don't think so.
No. And unfortunately, because public opinion is not on their side, and that campaign is actually going incredibly well and may well come to fruition. We're not there yet. We don't have the legislation in place, but it's looking really likely that it will happen. It's sort of the dying throes. They're really lashing out. So there has been a couple of quite unpleasant incidents in the last few months about that, and it's always really, it's always really unpleasant when it happens. It's a bit like when a complaint comes into work. I think we've all been through that process where the complaint comes in and there's that overwhelming feeling of panic. Oh my God. So there's somebody's complained or something goes wrong, and there's this, the pit of your stomach falls and you feel a bit sick and you sort of like want to run away and hide under a blanket because you just think, oh my God. And then you rationalize and then you calm down and then you sort it out. And, if you made a mistake, you put your hands up and it's awful. It's no, but none of the process is pleasant. And sometimes it is a bit like that where you just think, oh my God, what have I done? Why did I do that? That is, maybe these people are right. And I am what they say I am, and I am as awful as they say that I am. And, maybe I have acted in a really unprofessional way. And, because my professionalism and how I behave online as a vet is fundamental to me. It's absolutely vital that I, continue to behave as as to be expected of somebody in a professional position. That doesn't mean you can't be passionate or definite in your opinions. When they accuse me of things, I think, oh my God, maybe they're right. Maybe I did overstep the mark. So you have to go through this whole, you have to go through that journey, and sometimes it's not very nice. And then it all comes out, and then I do it again. So there's ups and downs to the online world for sure, but I just think it's so important that we stand up for what we believe in and for animal welfare, and it sounds really trite, but that's why it's so important.
It doesn't sound at all trite.
No, not at all. Mike. Is the petition still running? Because there is a petition, isn't there, in front of the
so the petition the petition is still running, but it hit 100,000 subscribers, or signatures, and that petition is it's got some slightly strange wording to reduce the numbers of ear cropped dogs, but a fundamental part of the suggestion for the government is to stop them being imported, right. Which will have a twofold effect. It will stop them being imported, so people can't bring them in from countries where it is not exactly legal, but less illegal than it is here. It's actually, ear cropping is actually legal in every EU member state. But in some places it's more illegal than others. And stop them being imported, and a lot of them had, but a huge amount, mainly the bully breeds, are being done in the UK. I think that is a completely accepted fact now. There are some, unfortunately, some members of our profession, I say members very loosely, who are cropping bully breeds in this country, and currently are hiding behind he was imported. He was an imported dog. So if we can stop them,
but I happen to have lost the paperwork.
Yeah, or you get them. I had one in my practice recently. Nice family, teenage lad, wanted an XL bully, bought him an XL bully, came to me for his second vaccination. So 12 weeks old, or 8 weeks old. It was not big, with cropped ears, already healed. And I said, well, where was, this is illegal, where was it done? And they said, oh, it was done in Ireland. Here's his, and I was like, well, has he got a passport? No passport. Here's the paperwork. So I was like, okay, fine. Vaccinated the dog. The dog was fine. The dog's healthy and well, and that's wonderful. It does not change the fact that something awful has happened to it, but good, at least the dog is fine. So I got in touch with my friend and yours, Pete Wedderburn, and I said, Pete, these media vets, we all talk to each other. Is it legal in Ireland? And he was like, absolutely not. So I said to the owners, we're going to have to report this. And I spoke to the VDS, and they said, you absolutely can. And I said to them, I'm going to report it. And they were supportive. They didn't know. It's not their fault, but so much of fashion, of particularly that kind of dog, XL bully, pocket bully, whatever you want to call them, pit bulls by any other name, a lot of them, because it's fashion, they're all sold with ears like that. It's presented to the new owners as completely normal. It's presented as it's been done legally because it's been done in Ireland or somewhere like that. I mean, the dog didn't have a passport, so if it travelled illegally. I highly doubt it was genuinely done in Ireland. And the 2 pieces of paper this dog came with were ridiculous. One little printed bit of certificate to say it was a member of XL Bully American Kennels, and one receipt for £9,000.
What?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give it all up and start breeding bullies.
Stop chopping the ears off dogs. Yeah. And but they didn't know, because it's presented as so normal. If you go online, on the Instagram pages, if you go on celebrities, they've all got, loads of them have got these dogs. The ears are chopped off. It's so normal that people either don't realise these dogs have, beautiful floppy ears that make them look like doofuses rather than, attack dogs, which is the reason the ears are chopped off, because there's so much mastiff in them. There's lovely floppy ears. And it's presented as completely normal and acceptable. And then, when people kind of know it's a bit illegal, they go, oh yeah, it's been done legally. And it has. So that's the driving force. So that's the idea behind that campaign, is making importation illegal is actually quite a clever way of drawing a line in the sand and saying it's unacceptable in this country, but also making it a lot easier for convictions to happen.
Yeah, that's really good. Why, just to throw it out there, why should we ban it? Why not just have them cropping their ears? Hopefully the answer is fairly easy. I think you ask a group of vets that question and we're all going to put our hackles up, aren't you? But there may be people watching or listening to this who think, what is the problem? I mean, surely they're done, if it's done under anaesthetic and they give them pain relief afterwards, there's no pain. What is the problem? So there we go.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that argument a lot, especially from Americans. It's not painful. They're on pain relief. Right, well, let's chop your ears off, stick you on some non-steroidals, Metagam or other ones exist, and let's see how sore it is while it heals, shall we? I think it's because there is a very clear moral and ethical line that is crossed when we perform cosmetic surgery on animals for nothing more than to change the way that they look to a way that we want them to look. That there is no advantage to the dog at all. You'll see people argue that it reduces the ear infections. It doesn't. It reduces the risk of ear injury. Well, if you've got no ear to injure, that's marvellous. But these dogs aren't injuring their ears.
But that's because you've already injured it. So that's a bit of a non-argument, isn't it?
Less chance of oral human
isn't it, Julian?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it is. There is. Yeah, so I think it's just a very clear ethical and moral boundary, and it has been. I think it's been officially illegal in the UK since about sometime in the 2000s when some legislation was passed, but it hasn't been done in the UK and hasn't been the breed standard for over 100 years. I'm not entirely sure whether it was officially illegal until legislation was passed more recently, but it certainly was never, ever, ever done. But those breed standards were not changed in other countries, particularly America, which is why it's still so routine over there.
Yeah. When I qualified, we just didn't do it. There was no need to. We laughed at the Americans who cropped their dogs' ears. And we wept pityingly for the dogs that had it done, but have never done it. And then when it became illegal over here, as a kind of, well, yeah, but it's not done anyway. But now it is. You're right. It's a fashion that people are willing to believe is legal because they've seen it on so many other dogs. So
and there's a certain degree of. So go on.
I was going to say, let's hope that bill gets passed quickly.
Yeah.
You're obviously in teaching mode at the moment, Kat. I wonder if we get you on the flow of that tide, and perhaps you've heard of our little thing of 60-second CPD.
Yes, I have. I have a plan for this.
Okay, so Kat Hentridge, Kat the Vet, we're going to challenge you to 60 seconds CPD, and you've chosen you want to talk about and share some useful stuff on the internet that other vets can use to help support them in their job with their clients.
Yes.
Starting now.
So because I live my life a lot online and discuss a lot of different things with a lot of different people, I have a little personal bank of information that I think is brilliant for clients to help educate them and to help them learn more about things. And I thought they might be helpful to you guys. So the first one is this. These are the WSAVA Global Nutrition Committee guidelines for selecting a pet food. So when clients come to us and say, what should I feed my pet? If we're comfortable giving them a recommendation, then that's amazing. And I think that's a lot of the time that's what they want. But if they are feeding a more sort of alternative type of food, these are the guidelines that they should be following. And particularly, I print this out a huge amount and say, if you're feeding that kind of food, wonderful, check that they follow these guidelines or make sure that they tick a lot of these boxes, because if they don't, then it's possible it's not nutritionally adequate. The thing that I want you to pay attention to the most is who is designing the food. It is so vital, particularly for smaller companies, that they are employing a well-qualified nutritionist, bearing in mind that anyone can call themselves nutritionists. If they don't have a PhD, master's or a board certified vet, I wouldn't feed the food to my pets, and I don't advise my clients either. But this puts it down in black and white from the Independent Nutrition Committee. Love it. They have great guidelines on all sorts of things at WSAVA. This one, the SCAP guidelines, I'd particularly like you to look at the worm control in cats and dogs. For people who are a bit worried about worming or want to know more about worm counts or want to know how often they should worm their pets, that is a brilliant resource, and in it is a flowchart to decide what risk their pet is and how often they should worm their pets. Again, it's completely independent from the best parasitologists in the Europe. Canine arthritis management, fabulous resource for arthritic pets. I send everybody there. They've got an amazing Facebook page and group as well. And this one I love, the home assessment tool, helping clients to understand that repetitive strain injury inside the home for arthritic pets is a massive issue. And then we'll just quickly run through behaviourists. If they're not associated with the APBC, the Association of Pet Behaviourists, don't touch them with a barge pole. There's a Find My Local one in there. I sent all my clients there. For training, dog trainers, another hugely unregulated field, the APDT. They are the association that has the highest and most stringent requirements for trainers. They assess them regularly. They make them do CPD. It's all really the good stuff. Training and behaviourists, if they do it wrong, can do so much damage. APBC and APDT are the only people that I will trust. And this one, just to finally finish off, Zero Pain Philosophy is an amazing website for veterinary surgeons to talk about pain management. All sorts of amazing blogs on there and webinars and information. It's fabulous and I use it a lot. Those are my top ones.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Kat.
Thank you.
How long did that take?
Very much indeed.
About
I wasn't
minutes.
really looking at the seconds. Huh?
About 3 minutes.
Three? Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Doesn't matter. That's
fine.
So, Kat, wow, what a fantastic panoply, cornucopia, a veritable cornucopia of information you've given us, and I think that is deserving of a CPD certificate.
Absolutely.
So,
well, that's another hour knocked off, isn't it?
Can you show us the certificate before then? So give us some ideas.
Oh, it actually is a certificate as well. Oh, how
there we
cute.
go. It's not a certificate. It's a catificate. There we go.
That's amazing. Yes, thank you very much.
Of learning stuff. There we go. And I was listening to Absolute 80s radio when I was doing the CPD certificate, and they played one of my favourite songs. So it says, this certifies that all the young dudes have hoopled the necessary material. It's a little pun there on Matt the Hoople, who sang All the Young Dudes. I got it. I don't know if anyone else will. We've all hoopled the necessary material and feel better for it. So it's me and M signed it. And what have we got? We've got. Now, we haven't touched on one of your hobbies, which is cooking. And I also have a hobby of cooking and trying new things. There's a jar of koi poo rillettes I bought a few years back to try. No. My advice to you is don't. Anything that says water rat on it, just steer clear.
Is that an actual rat in a jar?
It's koi poo.
What's that?
Koi poo, one of the largest rodents.
So it is a rat in a jar, like an edible.
It's a brown rat, yeah.
There's an actual rat in a jar that you're supposed to eat.
Yes.
Right. I mean, I consider myself. I enjoy trying new things, but I think I'd draw the line at a rat.
Draw the line at that. Yeah. I have one of these instead. This is a vegetarian shepherd's pie with a roast cauliflower and a wild garlic and tomato salsa.
Well, that is very smart.
There's my barbecue that I tend to use as a triple fire pit. I've got a Dutch oven roasting something, and then I've got two different curries cooking on other parts of it. This is a moule marinière with a homemade bread bowl and some homemade spaghetti. So I love cooking.
Right. But well, I'm not quite at that standard.
I'm sure you are. That's my homage to Mr. Tumble. That's me dressed as a clown.
Yeah, Mr. Tumble himself, absolutely.
And the rest. Oh, there we go. There's Thailand. A picture of Thailand, the Golden Palace, because I think you did some
Thailand and Thai food.
Didn't you?
Oh my God, Thai food. Yes, yeah. I'd go back there for the food.
There's some pictures of the Peak District.
Lovely on my doorstep.
And there's a brachycephalic dog. It's a French bulldog with cropped ears I saw a couple of years back. That
oh my God, a double whammy.
Absolutely.
Was it raw fed and then you'd have ticked every box?
Do you know, I think it might have been.
Raw fed with homeopathic no-sodes.
I did not get on well with the owners. But they were surprised to find out that when I did the airway surgery on it, I charged
do you do BOAS? Good for you.
Yeah, and I charge less for BOAS surgery if they have it neutered at the same time. And they said you give me the wrong price. They said it's £200. You've put this £200 less if I get it neutered. And I said, yeah, that's right. That's right. Essentially, I'm paying for you to get it neutered because I don't want them round anymore. They're abominations.
Well, PDSA would do that as well, eh?
Yes. But there we go. So there's the CPD certificate.
That is. You put a lot of thought into that. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. I'm very flattered.
You're more than welcome.
We didn't talk about cooking or MasterChef.
No.
I mean, I'm not into creating my own Indian banquets on a fire pit. I just more feel, smug that my kids will eat more than chicken nuggets and chips.
Nothing wrong with that. That's good stuff.
Well, I'm preparing tonight. I'm preparing poached whitefish with fresh Dorset creamed butter and sea salt with broccoli spears and crunchy croutons.
Ooh, sounds delicious.
It is. I think Poppy's going to love eating that.
That's amazing.
That's for Mike's dog. But Mike and his lovely partner don't eat as well as that.
No, we've got beans on toast. I don't.
Anyway, we have taken up a lot of your time, for which many, many thanks, because you've given us an amazing afternoon. It's been great fun.
Oh, you're welcome. welcome.
No,
It's been fun. Nothing more that I love than talking about myself and my passion. So it's absolutely fine.
Well, there's nothing more apparently than Mike and I love than listening to you.
Cat the Vet, thank you very, very much indeed for joining us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for having me. I've really had a lovely time.
That's absolutely fabulous. So all it bodes for us to do then is to wish you all the best, and we'll raise a mug as it's an afternoon recording. May your dog go with you.
May your dog go with you.
Or always come back to you at the very least.
Cat the Vet, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Wow, that's amazing.
What a dynamo.
Yeah.